Tiptoe around with face of a stranger. Quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. He's from the city, she's from the south. Two different chapters told miles out. Their back row living in his White House. So many stories that I need to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. So many stories right in front of me. Some people climb to heights I've never seen. Too many falling down off their feet. These stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Tiptoe around with face of a stranger. Quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Silverline's Wednesday Night WHAM! Hosted by Scott Wakefield!
Much better than last week. Very nice.
My throat's back. I'm not sick anymore. Yeah.
Sinus is cleared out. Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, and that means Wednesday WHAM. I am your host, Scott Wakefield, and I am so glad you are here with us. We've got a small crew tonight. I think we'll have some more folks joining us, and we're going to chat, and we're going to enjoy our evening and talk comic books and talk movies, talk pop culture and books. And I'll give you our topic here in just a moment. And in a moment, we'll introduce ourselves. But before we get rolling, I want to remind everybody that we are brought to you by the Daytona Beach Comic Convention, happening September 18th and 19th in beautiful, sunny Florida. September 18th and 19th. So
somewhere towards Daytona.
Somewhere near Daytona. It's not a very big state. You'll find it. Head over to their website and their Facebook page and any other socials they have. Make sure you like, share, follow. And if you can be there because we will have a good number of Silverline creatives there for you to meet. And if you have gotten one of our signature books, you can take your signature book and the price of that book will go up exponentially with the Johns Hancock of our celebrity team here. September 18th and 19th, mark your calendar. We are also brought to you by, this is a new sponsor because of some titles coming up. They thought it would be great to jump on. We have the History List and their History Camp sponsoring us, and that is historycamp.org. That is a project of the nonprofit called The Pursuit of History. They have weekly interviews with history authors. That can be viewed every Thursday on the website, historycamp.org. And on July 10th, they're hosting History Camp America. That's an online full-day history conference for history lovers across the country. If you want to get updates, go to historycamp.org and make sure you follow the link to sign up for their emails, and you'll get their newsletter. They just did a cool interview with somebody who wrote a Daniel Boone book. So they're all their history. They have World War II to Revolutionary War, colonial days, and it's a really cool website, historycamp.org. So thank you to them. And they are sponsoring us because coming next week is Steam Patriots on Kickstarter with Divinity number 2, Divinity, the award-winning title from Barb Kalberg and R.A. Jones. So that story continues, and the Steam Patriots world starts next week. So we'll have some big announcements on our show next week. We would love for you to join us. And that is my title coming up. So if you want to go find at Steam Patriots on Facebook and Instagram, that'd be great. And steampatriots.us is brand new. It is a not very flashy website, but it's there, and it's got a countdown. I'm really excited. It's got a little countdown clock. That's like my shining work that I've got. I'm more excited about that. No. The
but you got it working, that kind of thing.
The book will be very great, and that is co-created by my good buddy Rory, who hopefully we will see him soon. Not tonight. He is still somewhat homeless, I think. Poor guy. So before we get rolling, it is our custom to introduce ourselves so you guys know who is talking at you and how you can follow us and support us as creatives. I've introduced myself. Again, my name's Scott, and I will pass. I'm going to go around this way. I got Tommy, then Dean, then Tim. So, Tommy, go ahead and say hello.
Hello, everybody out there. My name is Thomas Floramonte Jr. I've been doing comics for, golly, it seems like forever, since early 90s. I've worked for Marvel and a little bit of DC stuff, a little bit, I don't know if it would include it, but a little bit of Image stuff, but a lot of stuff for bunches of everybody, but a lot of stuff for Malibu and a bunch of stuff for Silverline. And I'm currently working on 2 or 3 books, but the main ones right now is the Silverblade with Mr. Dean. Wave, Dean.
Dean.
He can't hear. Dean's got away.
I can hear. I'm waiting. Here I am.
Oh,
I'm waiting.
I got the wrong screen up. I'm an idiot. There it is. There. Hey, Dean, what's going on? I'm looking at the wrong screen. And then I'm doing also the Champion Miss Fury Silverline team up book and rejects, and then the next Trump's book, but mostly inking. And I also co-own the printing company Kablam Digital Printing, and we print pretty much all of the Silverline stuff and everybody else's stuff that's out there. And then I do all my own Inferno Studio stuff, all the things that you see behind me, and just a bunch of bunches and bunches of stuff, and more stuff.
Excellent. Thank
Yes.
you, sir. All right, Dean, you're next. Go for it.
Yes, my name is Dean Zachary. I've been doing comics for as long as Tommy Flormonte Jr. has, as a matter of fact. Worked for Malibu, worked for DC, worked for Dark Horse. And now I proudly work for Silverline, working on Silver Blade, an upcoming book. And Tommy is my illustrious inker. And I've enjoyed being invited to join these crazies on the Silverline Wednesday WHAM. So it's good to be here, kids. It's going to be fun.
Dean providing the gravitas to
Indeed.
our Wednesday show.
Sometimes just being a buffoon and enjoying that as well.
We fill all the roles here tonight, and I don't like that segue. I don't want to go from buffoon to Tim. I wanted to go from gravitas to Tim, the voice of Wednesday Wham, the producer, the guy that makes it all happen, the magic maker,
Yes.
Tim TK.
As he said, I am Tim TK, the producer / seducer of the Wednesday Night Wham Show. I am also.
And he's also been cheating on us lately. I want y'all to know. I don't know if he's gonna tell you that
I've
or
also
not.
been featuring on Silver Sunday, and perhaps
I'm jealous.
more direly, I've also been featured on a different company's show doing Unexplained, where we talk about weird little niches of pop culture and stuff, and try to explain stuff that has so far been lost down the annals of Expanded Universe that it no longer gets explained in the panels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of things have been in print for more than 40 years, so new readers might pop in like, where is this person?
What? Yeah.
So we dig
All
deep and
right.
have fun with it.
Okay. Play in the field. That's fine. Go ahead. Keep it going.
And I do the wrangling on our blog on the Silverline website, where we just had a little bit of a advert for our live shows and our podcast, where, again, we encourage all of our viewers to engage Silverline content nonstop until we dominate your dreams.
That was a little creepy. That
Indeed.
I was looking out my window. It's like,
The Silverline logo floating in the sky. And I'm also the writer and creator of one of our history-based comics, Wolf Hunter, World War II espionage action. Issue 1, in the process of being wrapped. Issue 2, my hands are completely off it as a writer. Issue 3, I just have a little bit of it's left, but I am pretty much done with the series as the writer at this point. Or at least the first volume, yeah.
that's awesome. I can't wait. I keep seeing little teases from it, and it's good stuff. At least the art. Yeah, and everybody out there, yes, we are masters of tease. Being an independent publisher, we love to throw out little bits of stuff that you can see. You get to see the works in process. It's really awesome. So we encourage you, please go over to silverlinecomics.com. Make sure you sign up for the craft blog that Tim puts together. He does some interviews. We get people's ideas on drawing and writing and storytelling and the various aspects of comic book making. So head over there. Make sure you're always liking, following, subscribing to our YouTube and our Facebook and Instagram, because we share art out there, and especially in these weeks leading up to Kickstarters. We love it. It comes fast and furious. We throw lots of teases out from. Right now it's Team Patriots and Divinity, and you see some pages, and we're going to be having. We're going to be appearing on other shows. We're lining all those up. Hopefully, it's a bunch if our schedules permit, and we will let you know when we're doing interviews on other shows. And we love when all of our Silverline fans jump on and throw on comments, and don't pick on us, please. I'm a sensitive person; I can't handle it. But maybe pick on Barb. Don't pick on Barb. She's wonderful. Man, who said that? Oh, so that the progress and the news and the excitement will be all over all of our outlets. So we love for you guys to join in. And always, please throw comments on during the feed if you're watching this live, and if you watch it later, you got a question, toss it on there. We try our best to get back and catch those notifications. And tonight's topic, get your pens, write it down so you can stay on track. We are talking about what we look for. Now, we never really narrow these down very well, but we're talking about love tonight. Love interests for our heroes. This would have been a good. I think we talked a little bit. Did we do love back in February? We
did a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So what we're talking now, this is great. We got a panel of guys. This is going to be good.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Great tracts of land.
Yeah. Right.
We're on topic here, and we're going to be respectful and mindful, like the professionals that we are, and talk about what we look for in love interests. The topic was supposed to be for our heroes, but I think we can talk about in any story. If there's a love, there's a plot, if it's part of the plot, if it's a character, part of the story, and it doesn't have to be comic books. It can be movies. It can be in literature, and what we're looking for. And we can talk storytelling-wise, plot-wise, art-wise, and all those sorts of things. Before we got started, we were chatting just a little, and I had to shut it down because we had some good conversation. We were all kind of in agreement that, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'm just speaking for Scott Wakefield here. For the most part,
you're wrong.
Dean, take it away. For the most part, it's not primary for any of us. As it's, I never a love interest, and I pick up hearts and hugging, kissing for a comic book. But if it's part of the story, great. Until it becomes the A plot. The primary plot, and then that's where I'll speak for myself. That's where I kind of always get kind of
It's we're not necessarily the rom-com crowd, and if that is your niche, then more power to you. But if it's done well and it's just kind of their thing, great. It's relatable. You can do a lot of emotional growth for a character, but that's not the niche of market that I'm interested in reading.
Right. I think it's fair to say that, much like the Sidekick, if it's an integral situation to storytelling, character development, plot, atmosphere, tone, metaphorical reference, what have you, then it's just the romantic interest, just an add-on or, I don't know, pandering to a demographic. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But in essence, what we dipped our collective toes in the water earlier by bringing up Mary Jane and Gwen, and I wanted to throw out, obviously, for those of you who don't know, who've been living under a rock, perhaps who is your favorite girlfriend of Spider-Man and or wife, depending on the era.
I'm on record as saying that Gwen was the first love of my life and the woman that broke my heart.
Yes. Mine too.
Yeah.
Mine's always been Mary Jane.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've always been a Gwen guy, and the reasoning is I went to high school with a girl as very much like Gwen Stacy, and she was one of those impossible to approach, attractive young women who was a cheerleader and super popular, and as you might expect, I was a nerd, but she was very kind and nice to everyone. She wasn't the typical sort of, or I should say stereotypical version of that personality, and was very kind and would talk to anyone and befriend anyone. And she's still a friend of mine to this day, and definitely fulfilled her I guess, career in terms of being a brain as she became a petroleum engineer. So
Wow.
I mean, she's a really smart lady. And but at any rate, I identified sort of with Peter Parker in that respect, in that she was the full pack. Gwen was the full package, brain, looks, and personality, and liked a nerd. So she was accessible. Where to me, Mary Jane sort of represented the much more stereotypical, that'll never happen. She's too flashy. She's, anyone else?
Yeah.
So
what about you guys?
You alluded to sidekicks. For everybody out there, if you didn't watch last week's show, we talked at length about sidekicks, as did Silver Sunday. Both shows talk about sidekicks. And Dean, you're touching on the role that extra person plays, and I don't say extra as in like they're a throwaway, but the hero is the hero,
Sure.
Male or female, whoever that is, and then we bring in the periphery characters, and sometimes they will get their own limelight. That happens, but that love interest plays a specific role, sometimes similar to a sidekick, but often a contrast. Somebody for the hero to talk to, someone for them to hash out problems, someone to point out their faults, someone to have faults, someone to be rescued, so on and so forth. The love interest can fill a lot of those roles. So I've got a question, and this is my ignorance, but also it'll help people out there. When did Gwen get introduced? Do we know an era?
Oh, you'd think I would know that. Being Spider-Man's one of my favorite.
Well, early on, I would say definitely before the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
When you start the Bronze Age.
Yeah, it was 1965. Spider-Man.
Right.
Spider-Man 31.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you know that, or you just looked it up?
I'm the producer. I have access to Google.
You've got Google. There's a system out there that you can look this stuff up. All right, go.
We're all going. Wow. Oh wait.
So was Gwen this again? I'm showing my ignorance. I could just play it off. Let our viewers know. Was Gwen always this more well-rounded character, intellectually and so forth, or did she evolve much like Robin and other sidekicks evolve from being two-dimensional and just a chum to being a three-dimensional person that we love and care for?
She did evolve, as all the characters did.
Yeah.
I would say the sort of iconic visual cues and script cues that we were given, early on, were that she was a brain, and she was the beauty brains mix, and that she and Peter Parker were probably equivalent in their scholastic aptitude. They're both smart kids. And so you got that. And then, of course, there was a lot of soap opera and drama because Gwen's father was a police captain, if I remember. And due to the adventures of, spoiler alert, due to the adventures of Spider-Man, Captain Stacy was killed. And by a fight with Dr. Octopus, if I remember, a chimney collapses on him. And in his dying words, Peter, of course, feels extreme guilt and is holding the dying man in his arms. And in his dying words, Captain Stacy says, "Take care of her, Peter," revealing that he's always known that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So it was one of those like touching things, even as a kid, a teenager, where like whatever, romance, whatever. But even then, it was a powerful moment in comics and made the death of Captain Stacy one of the some might say signature story arcs or issues of the Spider-Man saga. And of course, the spoiler alert, death of Gwen Stacy as well, being another tentpole, because that happened as a result of a battle with the Green Goblin.
Yes.
So
that happened.
Yeah,
I'd say
sorry, go
that
ahead.
happened in 1975, so we're going to be spoiling comic arcs from almost
Yeah,
50 years ago now.
Right. Well, for people who just really read Spider-Man before the black suit, let's say, you know, they don't really know. But there's a rich soap opera history with all the superheroes, but Spider-Man has obviously a special connection with a huge audience.
Mhm.
So it's fair to say Gwen and Mary Jane are probably the two most well-known romantic interests, you know, along with, on the other side, you know, Lois Lane and that sort of thing. So,
And yeah, Lois is one too, like the 40s Fleischer Superman. She just every episode she answers the phone or gets a lead, goes off, and it's some supervillain, and then she gets trapped, and Superman has to save her every single time.
I know, every time. Yeah.
So which of these romantic characters are there just to have to be saved every book? Does that make them a good character?
No. I'd say the damsel trope is,
because that's the only reason why they're there.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Ruby from Curse Words, which is a newer indie comic. Featuring evil wizard turned protector of Earth after he has a hot dog at Yankee Stadium, which convinces him of the goodness of Earth. It's a fun time, but
very cute. I like it.
His love interest and for a time nemesis Ruby is, for all intents and purposes, more powerful than him because she spent more time in the magic dimension and they conquered more worlds in the meantime while he's been chilling in Earth, which is not a magical land. So when they get reconnected and you kind of restart the thing, she's beating the crap out of him, and then she has to be the one who they play it on his head where he's the damsel for one of her arcs until they equal them out. But it's fun watching a couple that is able to equally look after each other's back. Because, I mean, ideally in a marriage, that's what you do, is you work together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so just like, I will try to not keep hearkening back to our sidekick conversation, but they go from those two-dimensional Lois Lane damsel stories to a person we care about, a well-rounded character who has a backstory and likes and dislikes, and we learn to love. Now that rescuing thing, that's nothing's wrong with that. I don't think.
No.
There is something about that desire for, especially if none of us are really superheroes.
Speak yourself.
Well, I'm sorry.
Hey,
I didn't want to reveal anything. But we can't fly. We can't punch through buildings. We can't pick up cars and throw them. So of course it's awesome to read a story and jump into, whether it's a fantasy world where we're swinging a sword, fighting a dragon, or that resonates. And then and these themes of love or rescue or even passion or whatever. Mm-hmm. Those are themes that resonate, and there's nothing wrong with those. But when it becomes a trope, when it becomes predictable, that's the problem. Every episode of Lois Lane is gonna, I wonder what's gonna happen next.
Right. Well, when you were talking about power, Tim was alluding to this, the sort of power equivalency for a couple. I think we were discussing before the show went live, Jean Grey. Jean Grey, arguably one of the most powerful beings.
Oh, yep.
Especially when she's in her Phoenix state or her dark Phoenix state, whichever. But you get the idea that the power struggle between Wolverine and Scott and Jean and the love story, they're blended together. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about the difference between, like, say, a Jean Grey, Scott Summers, Wolverine triangle versus, say, a Peter Parker, Mary Jane, Osborn triangle? I mean, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah, and at the time I also deal with Osborn kind of dealing with his morality, figuring out where he stood and everything. And I think either way, it leads to some fun storytelling. Because you end up creating those antagonistic forces, which they can be this on the same team antagonism, like you would get in the sports movie with Wolverine and Cyclops. Or you end up getting the direct antagonism where you have Osborn trying to figure out, is he going to be a goblin like his dad? Maybe he should do something else, and then ends up becoming more and more like his father. And that also throws the love triangle into weird places. But I like the way that it works a bit more in X-Men. That may just be my own bias, because it happens in tandem as essentially each mission they do comes up. There's room for it to develop on the side of that. But Peter Parker did become the main focus at times, but it was done in such a way that it was the story. It was always the story of Spider-Man versus a Goblin, but it took forms in, many different fields.
Right.
But I like the opportunity to just kind of throw it into side, kind of no matter what's happening, because then you also end up getting the flaw in the team, where they can't be a perfect team because there's obvious tension, and your heroes have flaws, and therefore your teams have flaws, and that allows for some fun moments of growth also.
Well, and there's also some interesting twists on the romance theme when you talk about, for example, Mr. Freeze and his wife, right? And so in that case, one could argue that romance is a motivation for his villainy, so to speak. And so that's a little bit of a different use of the romantic.
Yeah.
Care to expand on that, Scott, Tim, Tommy, anybody?
Well, it goes back to those basic themes that resonate with us. That just like being in love with somebody and not being able to have that person, and when you're writing a story, it's you keep just dialing it up. So okay, I can't have that person, but why? Because she's with somebody else, some schmo. Okay, but no, she's with my buddy. She chose my best friend or something like that. Or you are a team that has to work together. That's dialing up the drama, the tension, making things more difficult. And then ultimately, if the love of my life is dead, that makes especially with a villain, their motivation. That's when you can give them that little bit of relatability, and you can say, "Oh, I might do that if that happened to me. I might snap and become a freezy guy with a bubble head." And
let's kill the dinosaurs.
I might go crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I like, again, that well-rounded character where there's something else, where they're not just bad, bad for a reason that maybe we understand. Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about this on the Sunday show when we talk about sidekicks that left their henchmen that left their villains.
Yeah.
But as a villain, if you're a good villain, you have an ideology which can be shared by your hero and oftentimes they are. They're usually like a mere character, but it's inherently flawed. That's why they're the villain.
Right.
In some cases, everyone's ideology is flawed, and then you get the Watchmen. But
right.
But when you have I'm not too familiar with the lore of Mr. Freeze, but what I am familiar with is the Joker-Harvey relation.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, Joker's main philosophy is people need to stop taking stuff so seriously. It's things will work themselves out, which is a good mindset to have. The way it flaws itself is the entire world is a joke, and everything should
Nothing
be
matters.
nothing matters.
Nothing matters. So yeah,
Yeah, so that's the
no moral compass.
yeah,
there,
that's the
so.
flaw in it. And
Right.
so Harley, who wants to see, who's wanting to see everything from her patient's perspective in order to understand them, better heal them. When she ends up understanding the Joker's perspective, you get that weird moment where it kind of breaks her mind, and she becomes
Yeah.
Harley Quinn. And because the Joker's philosophy is so inherently flawed, as she begins to understand more of that, she's like, "Oh, this is actually a terrible relationship. I need to see myself out immediately." And you can do fun things with romance for antagonists like that as well, where it's the damsel rescuing herself. Or how does that play against each other? Game of Thrones, you have a lot of like husbands and wives conspiring against each other, because even though they share similar ideologies, they have different flaws in it that cause them to work diametrically against each other. And then we end up getting a relationship later down the road, like Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, where they share a similar flaw in that they're both very evil people at the time. But they then begin the process of rectifying that and develop a new ideology. And that, okay, what do we do with this now? Do we grow up, just try to do the best we can for ourselves? And does that mean working with Batman at times? Yeah, I guess.
Well, another, you heard another connection in my mind between a villain and a romance, and that is Dr. Doom and Sue Storm. Victor has always sort of had a thing for Sue, and you get the idea that perhaps it began at the university, and Victor, having that impossible ego and thinking, his way is the best, and Reed, of course, correcting him, and he can't handle that, so he doesn't listen, and the accident that scars him, and he has to wear the cool armor. And I, for one, like his cool armor. So
it's a tight design.
So
yeah.
But the fact, the thing I love about the Doctor Doom character, you touched on this, is the flawed ideology idea. Dr. Doom is really almost it's almost like a Dracula character. He's the ruler of his own country somewhere in a fictional part of Eastern Europe, and he just runs things like a medieval warlord, it's a deal. But then again, he has a concept of right and wrong, and good and evil. He just has no moral compass when it comes to accomplishing his goals, which inherent flaw making him a villain. But there's a pathos to him, and this is tangent to the romance. This goes a little bit deeper than that. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the tragedy of his mom, who was a gypsy, and through various black magic was consigned to the underworld by Mephisto. And so Doctor Strange and Victor Von Doom make a pilgrimage down to the underworld to try to rescue his mom in one adventure. And it's come to light through various writers of Doctor Doom that on the anniversary, forgive me if this is not the exact storyline, but in general, there's a special anniversary once a year. Doctor Doom casts a spell and goes into the underworld to try to rescue his mother, who is trapped there. And so when you find that out about him, you sort of, it begins to build empathy for the villain, which again makes him more interesting. Mm-hmm. And we have a much more elevated villain than arguably any of the cinematic treatments of Doctor Doom have even come close to, to capturing.
I mean, that was to your point, Dean, he's always viewed himself as being he lost his family, so he must be the protector of other families.
Yes,
that's why he runs Latveria the way it does. Is the only way to stop people from killing each other is to have a totalitarian crackdown, and the only way for all wars to cease and for people to live long, happy lives is for me to rule them all. Because then they're all and like, well, You might have a point there, but the method to your madness is a bit terrifying.
Yes.
But then when you get
one of my favorite, I want to interject this briefly, Tim, and then I apologize, but I want you to continue with your thought. But one of my favorite lines for Dr. Doom, brilliant. He's with obviously a fanboy member of S.H.I.E.L.D. In a storyline, and the fanboy says, "You mind if I take a selfie?" And there's a quiet panel of Doom just turning and looking at the guy, and then another quiet panel, and then Doom just says, "Do not speak to me again if you wish to live." It's that level of arrogance.
Yes.
Sort of, it's almost comical, but it's also hilarious.
Yes.
You know, the way if he's written correctly, he should be Darth Vader, which that's a whole nother show, but Darth Vader is actually a ripoff of Dr. Doom. Sorry, George.
Yes.
Sorry, all the Star Wars fans, but Darth Vader's a ripoff of Dr. Doom.
Well, that was Dr. Doom. The worst of his scarring, and also I just recently found out that this is actually canonically accurate. So he burned himself, but the what caused his face and his disfigurement for the most part was actually the fact that he put his mask on before it cooled down. He was too eager to put on his creation that it actually worsened everything.
Haste makes waste.
Yeah,
indeed.
But you see that ego when he's like, my way's the right way, so we're going to do it this way because that's the way that most people get alive. And we're like, well, right, sure about that, because he's sounding a lot like a dictator here. But then you get some of the Galactus arcs or Battle World or something where there is a greater than threat, and his ego wants him to be the lead, but his wanting to essentially act out his protector complex is like, all right, I need to get a hold of Reed, I need to get a hold of Captain America or whatever, because they're too inept to deal with it, so I need to be there to help them.
Yes.
And you do see that also kind of come in where in those situations he then interacts with Sue and Reed, and there's some very clear moments of dialogue where he talks about how Reed is clearly not doing enough for Sue, and that he is not as determined a protector as he would be.
Well, isn't there also some writers have teased a potential relationship between Victor and Scarlet Witch, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that happened either shortly after or shortly before the Pretender revelation, where we learned some of the darker depths of Scarlet Witch's origin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's news to me. That's news to me.
Okay. Okay.
I'm learning tonight.
Absorbing.
Can we come up with examples? Sorry, I might be making a big jump here.
Sure.
Can we come up with examples of heroes that do not have? Now, we might have to go off the romantic track here a little, but some sort of important relationship, interpersonal. Do we have heroes that are completely in a bubble that don't have someone that they care about or that cares about them? Do they if they only care about the mission? Do we have characters like that?
We do.
Judge
in
Dredd.
Comic, I was going to say in comic books maybe Judge Dredd. In film, the Man with No Name is the only, and he's an anti-hero, so that doesn't really fit. I can't think of any that really. Certainly nothing major comes to mind. No one of a major status comes to mind.
Yeah,
they all have romantic.
So
interest.
Is it something because you got to? Is that the way to make them real, make them relatable?
It's a key way to ground a character is to give them emotional attachment, because that's something. But for the most part, barring neurodeviancy, everyone has that longing for connection. And so
yes.
To make a hero have moments that are relatable, they're also going to want to act out on that longing for connection. And you can, as a writer, that also gives you the opportunity to make them vulnerable to that. If you're a villain and you find out that your hero has a girlfriend, of course you're going to go for the family.
Right.
Or it then allows you to, or you can play it the other way and use it for moments of growth, where if you care about someone and they're into the vigilante business, you're going to want to do what you can to protect them, and that's encouraging them to do things they'll better themselves.
I have a question, Tim, for you
Sure.
and everyone, really, but open question. But I've always been fascinated with the writer's ability to sell the audience on a villainess becoming a good guy through a romantic connection. For instance, the White Queen in the X-Men universe, and then who I never believed was a good guy. Sorry, she's a bad guy. Let's see, Selena Kyle. Catwoman. It's a little less intense than being part of the Hellfire Club.
Yeah,
arguably, but expand on that. I don't buy, like, I've never really bought Emma Frost as a good guy, but I can almost buy Selena Kyle trying to be good because she has affection for Bruce.
Yeah.
So expand on those two for me.
So I do think it's kind of depending on the way it's originally done, it can be it can either be very kind of real or very poorly done, depending on how you go about it. Selena Kyle's turnabout is almost the mafia story paradigm.
Yes.
Where the person gets out of crime because they're like, oh, actually, I have a family I need to care about. Whereas Selena Kyle's like, oh, actually, Bruce is kind of great. I don't want to ruin this. And then you get the whole relation like, you're a Catwoman, you're a Batman. Do we really need to change all that much? Probably not. And so I felt like that portrayed a little better. Emma Frost's original transformation, I didn't like as much. But as Brubaker continued to work that, I got it to like it a little bit better because we get some more explanation into Scott's persona. Because that was at the time where they're going to Utopia. So they're coming fresh off of essentially being genocided as a race. Genosha has been destroyed by the Sentinel army, and just barely by the skin of their teeth, they scrape by. Yeah, and Xavier, I believe that was one of the moments where he passed. One of the moments he's died. And so the key kind of parts of mutant leadership there are Magneto, Scott. This is after Joseph and Magneto separated. So Magneto again. When you get like into weird moments of X-Men lore, you're like, who are you at this point in time?
Right.
Yeah.
In which point of your growth or disintegration are we now?
Yes.
Eric.
Yeah.
Who are you, Eric?
Yeah. So Moira and Taggart a little bit, and then Xavier comes back later on. But at this point, they're creating Utopia, but they're beginning to enter into kind of the hardline moment, which is we end up seeing a lot of that now in Hickman's X-Men, which I've said before, is what they need to do, where it's fine, like, hey, you're a writer, here's this property, run with it. We'll get back to the edits later. Not try to design by engineering or thinking too much about the market metrics. But by them, what made all these people kind of softer was working together as a team, but now the things are separated and it's the more hardline people. Scott becomes more of a hardline person. The mutants start taking more of a hardline outlook on the relationship with humanity. And that's
Could it be... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying that's more where Emma fits in, where she's able to coexist, but in a harsher, more cruel way, because the Hellfire Club was essentially a pro-mutant mafia, with some doomsday intentions at points, depending on Sebastian Shaw's mood. But they're able to coexist in humanity as long as they had the upper hand. And so with Utopia, and now also in the Hickman run, where they're on Krakoa, mutants are like, we're going to coexist with you, but we're going to keep the upper hand, and we're not letting you take that anymore. It's very much the turning the Velvet Glove into more of not quite an iron fist, but maybe just like some brass knuckles.
Yeah, well, I like that. One day we'll explore. It's for another show.
Yeah.
The X-Men could, in some interpretations, now be villains because
they definitely feel like it, but it's. I think what they're doing really well now is they're exploring the villains to whose perspective, and they do a nice thing of in the comic. It's almost a very writerly thing, but how do you make sure that the characters are watching, even though they may do some have some weird outlooks on things? How do you make sure they're still the good guys? They have a "thou shalt not kill no humans" law. They said it's much more forgivable to kill another mutant than it is to kill another human. So they're
so that's how they're drawing the moral compass in the X-Men right now is the good guys don't kill humans. That's their thing. Is they can dominate humans with an iron fist.
Yes,
and they can create a Third Reich sort of superior race. Overlording humanity, and that's not bad enough.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll do a whole show.
Yeah.
One of my favorite rants is my Magneto rant.
Yes.
Wait a minute. You escaped the Nazi death camp to become
and now you're a
supremacist.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. We'll explore that on another show.
But in terms of what that does for Emma as the love interest turning her, it doesn't understand where. Everything has to scale. So Selena Kyle scaling to wanting to change to be with Bruce. She was already a non-violent villain. She's like, I'm just here to make her heist, take care of myself, take care of my family, and we're out. And when Batman's like, we have ways of taking care of you without necessarily robbing jewels.
You don't really have to steal. I mean,
yes, yeah.
Yeah, he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
So it's like,
but
I can pretty much.
Yeah.
I think she's one could argue that she is addicted to the adrenaline rush.
Yes, yeah. She's a theft jockey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Theft junkie.
Yeah, but with Emma Frost's turn, didn't really work as her with the Goody Two Shoes X-Men. It was better with our X-Men are like, we're still here, we're going to save Earth when we can, but we're not going to be as cordial of people after what they did to us. And so when she's like going from this organized syndicate to we're not necessarily like the best guys, but we're better than most. that transition makes.
I still think they're villains.
Yeah,
I still think they're villains. I think the original intent of the X-Men was a much more altruistic perspective. It was, even though people hate us, and treat us poorly, we still will stand above that.
Yeah,
we will not return evil for evil. We will still. It was more Superman. It was more like. You can throw stones at me all day long, but I'm still going to be the good guy, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, they've dropped on the. I mean, if you're going to use a D&D, template, they've dropped on the lawful good spectrum. They're like neutral good or chaotic good.
Yeah, they definitely feel a lot more neutral good to me. Where things are now,
right.
And we're seeing that now where that plays out is Emma Stone. Emma Frost. Emma Stone. Emma Frost as portrayed by. Yes.
Who are you thinking about there, buddy?
She is okay with where they're at, but it's still a little too nice for her now where they are with Hickman's X-Men, where where Xavier and Magneto said, we're not going to try to straight up conquer humans. We're just going to create we're going to create the most elaborate, like, mercantile nation. So we have no choice but to trade with us. But
oh wow,
yeah,
okay.
they created mutant Venice essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Benevolent dictatorship.
exactly,
Okay.
as done through commerce. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Gotcha.
but we're still there should Galactus or in this case Big Bad is Keenan Black Newell.
Okay.
Yeah, comes in. They're like, we're still going to save Earth, but understand that you're going to be buying stuff from us, and if you try to mess with us again, we're going to give you some very mean eyes. I will say what they did very well in terms of being still trying to maintain some of the awful goodness. They have instituted some sort of resurrection protocol. So means they just say like, you understand that comic book characters don't die. We're just going to put that at the forefront, and we're just going to leave it there. Xavier gets assassinated, and he talks about he felt every moment of him dying. And he's like, it's not the worst thing. We'll deal with them if they come up again, but we don't need to burn everything down. It's like, just imagine like you feel yourself die, and you know that someone tried to kill you, and you're like, I'll get to it if I have to.
Can you guys imagine like traditional Cap and the Avengers tolerating that?
Right.
Like, it would be Avengers versus X-Men like constantly.
Mhm.
Right.
It would just be like, no way, sorry. But anyway, that was a good crossover too, by the way. I wonder why they don't explore that in the cinematic U. That would be kind of cool.
Well, thinking now that they own Fox, that they said,
they might do it now.
Yeah, they said X-Men is going to be several years out if they did bring them in, and I'm thinking that maybe after we finish Phase 4, they might hint at something.
Can they say mutant now?
I believe so. Yeah.
Hey, we're at the midway point. This is a good spot for everybody that we are brought to you by the Daytona Beach Comic Book Convention, Daytona Beach Comic Con. Go to their website, go to their Facebook page, like, follow, share. September 18th and 19th, there will be Silverliners there aplenty. If you want to meet Silverline crew, get some signatures, put it on your calendar. Also, I forgot to mention, Pensacon is May 21st and 22nd, right, Tommy?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, Tommy will be there.
Well, I'll be at the Daytona show and Pensacon.
Yeah, Tommy will be at both. All of our Floridians will be there. We've got a lot of Floridians. And take your signature book if you got one of those a while ago. That's awesome. Oh, speaking of getting stuff, all of our Kickstarter backers should be soon, very soon, right, Tommy? Getting their...
well, if you guys wanted to know, somebody came by the office today and picked up all the books. So, maybe I wasn't supposed to say that.
Well, can
you cut that out, Tim? Can you cut that out?
Yep, absolutely.
All right,
everyone, plug your ears for a second. Okay, we've got a delay, right? We have a delay. All of you, thank you for supporting us on Kickstarter. That is our distribution model right now. We finish books. We got books ready to go, and as they are ready, we throw them up on Kickstarter for everybody to order them, and they get all the goodies and extras. Each campaign is a little different, and we don't have, I can't tell you everything that's going to be extra coming up next week, but we'll have some goodies for all of you out there.
Roland didn't, like I said, he came by and picked up the stuff, and we went to lunch. Tim, guess where we went?
Del Taco?
Del Taco!
Nice.
And,
our other sponsor.
He's been working on getting a Kickstarter together, so I think he'll probably share it with us pretty soon, so we can kind of see what it's going to be.
Yep. Yeah. That next week, Thursday, we will be live with Steam Patriots #1 and Divinity #2. And if you haven't read Divinity #1, you're missing out on an award-winning story. So head over to.
You will be able to pick up copies during the Kickstarter as one of the add-ons.
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you'll be able to grab those during the Kickstarter.
Well, are they also available for purchase from indieplanet.com?
They have
that
to.
Is true.
Isn't that incredible?
Like a Blam company.
It's just weird that you can just buy stuff. Just go online and buy things.
Indieplanet.com. You can get all the Silverline titles you ever wanted. and then buy them for your friends and your family, your love interests, and so forth. Buy them. Hey, also, did you guys know? Did everybody out there? Did you know that we have a podcast? If you're driving around, you've got a commute, you're doing the dishes, cleaning the house, bicycling like Tommy does hither and thither, and you want to listen to a show you missed, condensed, trimmed down, and easily digestible. We have our podcast out there.
The one that they just dropped, I think it's the 5th episode. You guys gotta, all you guys listening out there, you need to go and listen to that one. You'll see how we got kicked off of
yeah.
That's the YouTube episode that we all didn't know what was going on.
X-rated episode of
yeah, Tim, you remember I think we thought one thing, but after I listened to it, that's not why we got kicked off. I know why we got kicked off.
Oh boy.
Well, yep. Hey, go just do a search. It's on Spotify. It's elsewhere. Silverline Comics podcasts are out there, so you can grab those, download those, listen to those, and hear classic episodes, including one that was unfit for the internet. And
it wasn't even that bad either. It was really weird.
It's a robot, right? It's an algorithm that hears keywords and then says.
Yeah, it actually is. Yes.
yeah.
But you can listen to your Silverline podcast on your commute while we're working out. You can watch us in the evenings. You can read a Silverline comic before bed, and when you go to night, you'll dream of us and our eldritch horror.
I bet right now I could say the 3 words just one time and get us kicked off. You want me to go? I know the 3 words. I remember. Yeah, I can do it. I'll tell you later.
Okay, tell us off the air.
Yeah.
And Tim has an excellent reference to the Silverline overlords ruling your life, much in a Dr. Doom fashion. Yes, go to silverlinecomics.com and read his blog there, or the latest entry into our Silverline world about how we are getting all of our stories out there, and you can find us everywhere. Hey, and can't forget to mention that because Steam Patriots is coming out next week, the folks at historycamp.org have lovingly and happily said they'd love to sponsor our shows. So historycamp.org, go over there and make sure you sign up for their email, because registration for History Camp on July 10th will be happening soon. And that is an online full-day history conference for history lovers across the country. I get paid a penny every time I say the word history. And History Camp is a project of the pursuit of history. And on
there's 2 pennies.
historycamp.org, you can learn about history from history authors in their interviews. And July 10th is History Camp. So go to historycamp.org. Thank you for making our shows possible. And I say shows plural because don't forget Silver Sunday, 9 p.m. to 11 on Sunday nights. Sometimes our disloyal Wednesday WHAM folk. That's all right. But they do okay on Sunday night. They talk.
They need the help.
It's okay. We lend aid for their show. And I hope I haven't missed anything. So we are talking, if you're just joining us, first of all, thank you. And if you're just joining us, we are talking love. What do we want to see from the love interests in our stories? And we've gone not just love interests, we've talked about relationships and how those have evolved, much like our discussion last week about sidekicks, and how those relationships have grown from just another character that's there to somebody we feel for, somebody we might even fall in love with a little. And when there's strife or there's anguish or there's good, there's bad, it makes for a great story. But us as a bunch of guys, we've said we don't want to get into the mushy gushy soap opera stuff so much. So we can almost take it or leave it sometimes, but if it propels the story and is integral, yes, we're all for it. But when it takes precedence over the story as a love story, that's not our cup of tea. That's not my cup of tea, as a preference.
Well, can the love interest also be the sidekick too? Kind of.
Yeah.
And what?
And we talked a little. We touched on it and then didn't go into it at depth. Characters that work together really well and that are love interests. For our Wednesday bingo out there, Iron Man, Pepper Potts. She even puts a suit on, and sometimes not. Works alongside Tony, Ant-Man and Wasp, and that Hank Pym's ability to keep a relationship going is not so great in the comic book world, and that's depth. That's reality.
Same with Scott Summers, and as Dean and I were talking about how the X-Men have some more villainous moments, kind of on the same theme. What I think is interesting is when a hero's choices, altruistic or not, end up driving their interest away.
Yeah.
What I think is kind of interesting with the new X-Men is Xavier's new hardline stance at times has actually driven away Moira McTaggart to the point where she just bounced and said, "I'm going to another timeline later."
And the change out that leads me to this open question for everyone is do you have any examples that come to mind where the romance has altered one or both members of the relationship? For example, Selena, Kyle, and Bruce Wayne, Catwoman and Batman. Have they changed each other by being romantically involved?
Well, I can go back to Iron Man. Now, the comic book is different than the movie because Pepper ends up with Happy in some timelines and sometimes not. But in the movie world, of course, Pepper changes Tony Stark. And we talked about this a little, how Iron Man 3 is kind of at least in my estimation. But as a Tony Stark movie, it's great. And then through the Avengers movies and all the way to Endgame, that love story, that's what rips our hearts out, and our arc reactors get crushed. So
good point.
So yes, that story, and that's good. That's another theme that we have these relationships and we're going to struggle and there's strife. And sometimes I'm not going to like you. Sometimes you're not going to like me. And that they just like a sidekick, they point at our weaknesses. They shine a light on how we need to change. And Iron Man and Pepper in the movie world do that well, and in the comic book world too. She's always. I mean, he ruins all these relationships. Yeah. Tony does, especially with the alcoholism. And they are always saying, "Hey, you're a jerk."
Yeah.
And through the 50, 60 years he's set. How long?
Yes. How long has been around?
Yeah. How long have all of these? Yeah. They all ebb and flow. They get recycled. They get recycled. They get better, and there's resolution, and then usually that's towards the end of their story life, and then they get rebooted or something changes. But yes, that
a new writer comes on and they start over.
Yeah, that love interest is a great person to say, you better shape up, or I'm out. Like you said, like more. And that happens a lot too, because they have to. That's another struggle. Yeah. Is it the cause? Is it the goal? Is it the mission?
Yeah. Or I think kind of what's interesting, kind of in the inverse of that, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, once they get together in alternate timeline, now canon, where they both have this realization where, like, hey, if one of us goes to jail, that kind of puts a damper on this whole thing. Never mind the many times they've both broken out of jail. But like, so then deciding, like, and we have these scars from being villains. So what if instead we develop our own mission and become heroes? And so we had this moment where, kind of like talking about, where love just changing character kind of falls weak, like Emma Frost's first Ed, where there wasn't really anything, but the circumstances and consequences of new relationships should change a character, because if your character is smart and thinking and their own person, they're going to, well, you as the writer are going to develop the situation, are going to analyze the situation, but you'll write them as analyzing the situation, figure out what's best for them. And if in that case is like, what if we became a vigilante duo and we became Bonnie and Clyde, but in Gotham, beating up the people we used to work with?
Right.
Then it also leads to some really fun, interesting dynamics where their romance has changed them, but it's them analyzing that this is just much better for us as people, as a couple, and puts us at much less risk of ruining our futures. And I think that's a fun way of approaching that change.
So, what are some things we hate in the romance, that love interest in any story? And the Lord of the Rings focus on the love that's not in the book, and it's there, but it's not the focus. And I know with the movie they want that broad appeal. They want to bring in everybody. I don't know. For me, this is Arwen.
Talking about Arwen and Aragorn and how
yeah.
their love is this and that, and the whole
Yeah.
elven world is dying, and this.
Yep.
And that. Okay. Yeah. I think that all plays into what we established early on, and that they're within the comic book entertainment world, as in all the entertainment worlds, there are genres, and our genre is not the romance storyline. Most of us, it's fair to say, being guys and having known each other for a while, we got into this for the action adventure, perhaps maybe secondarily mystery thriller, perhaps, and then maybe romance on the side or as a subtext. But that being said, if romance is brought into this milieu, this genre, and it begins to corrupt, poison, dominate, and ultimately distract from the action adventure, then I think it becomes a problem. And I think you did hit on something that caught a lot of people's attention with the Lord of the Rings saga, in that it did feel a little bit like the romance was enhanced to drive the storyline a bit. I didn't necessarily have a problem with it being adapted that way. I had other problems with the adaptation. But yes, I can see where, I think in general, if we're talking the action adventure genre, or even the mystery thriller genre, or even horror for that matter, if romance becomes heavy-handed, and it becomes the main focus, again, you're working against your fan base for that genre. Now, you can be fans of multiple genres, obviously, but nobody really wants to go walk into an action adventure movie and have it turn into a sappy romance. Just the way a romance fan wouldn't want to go into a movie and have it be a blow 'em up, shoot 'em up fight fest for 2 hours.
Now,
so you want to get what you're paying for.
But The Hobbit, that's the one.
Yes. So I had like what he was saying, like Aragorn and Arwen. I liked it because it served the plot and they used it to advance Narsil and some other stuff, and has some fun politics there with Elrond not necessarily being super down with his daughter dating a half-blood. But the romance in The Hobbit between the Mr. Dwarf Man and not Feely and very forgettable, not in the books.
Very forgettable,
made up.
Yes,
made up.
Lily, right?
Yeah, that felt like it was put in there. Like, hey, this is an action adventure movie. We need to have a fun romance subplot because.
Well, no, you don't.
Yes,
actually, that whole trilogy is a travesty, because you didn't need that many hours to tell The Hobbit. The Hobbit is a straightforward fairy tale.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, just come on, guys, leave it alone. Don't stretch it and twist it and corrupt it to the point where, hey, we've got to do another trilogy. No, no.
It's created by design and calculation, not by.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, somebody with
Hence the
their
ultimate sin
money.
of our coda, our mantra
Yeah.
that Tim and I talk about all the time. Creativity being beyond calculation. If you calculate and you can see the strings and the mirrors and the smoke, you ruin it.
I'm gonna put something out there. This may be a hot take, but for male writers out there, if you put a female in a book, she does not need to live her protagonist.
She does not need to.
She does not need to. She can serve her own purpose.
Well, yeah.
What?
That's what's evident. I mean,
Yeah,
okay.
but
I don't know about this. Are you trying to get our show turned off?
exactly. It's like, well, if we put an elf in there and she loved the dwarf, why? Because she needs to, and because we need this
I
here.
mean,
Has to love the dwarf. Has to love Feely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That.
boy, was
again,
that? Did that just feel? Did that just? Oh, that felt so fake.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. The whole. Bleh. I have talked about this. One of my favorite non-romantic relationships in the movies is Captain America and Black Widow.
Yes.
They're fantastic. I
Mhm.
love them kicking
So
butt
good.
together, being friends, being like talking about like, hey, what about that girl? And like, I'm not interested. And you got to listen to this music and just friends. And I love that relationship, and I love her character. She's one of my favorite characters because she's well-rounded. She loves people. She hates people. She kicks butt. She's still a woman. It's like she's fantastic.
Is it fair to say that Black Widow is sort of a female Wolverine?
I'll give you that. Yeah, she's tough, but she'll protect people. She will fight to the bitter end. She's tough, but not unfeeling.
Yeah, she's loyal, but
again,
much like Wolverine, she's been tortured and tormented and still has retained her humanity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Tim, they don't always have to be romantic. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct.
I think that same aspect of Black Widow is why I'd be interested in like an X-23 movie or something like that following after.
Sure.
Yeah. This idea of having these not romantic, but loving in a different way style characters where it was very clear that Wolverine had developed feelings for X-23 and these kids as like, this is my responsibility. I am their dad now.
Yes. The fatherly affection. That makes for another interesting turn rather than romance.
Yeah.
You know, a parental attachment. Yeah, that's very cool for Wolverine. Well, we've already seen that. We discussed it with Wolverine and Jubilee.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's precedent for that. And in fact, there's precedent for Wolvie sort of being a dad figure to a lot of these characters, because if you think about how old he actually really is.
Yeah. How many wars he's lived through. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The other thing about Black Widow, you guys are big fans of Black Widow. Her metaphorical template would be, I don't know if you're familiar with La Femme Nikita.
Yeah.
But the idea of the street kid plucked off the street and turned into an assassin by a secret organization, and then being forced to become a cold assassin, but retaining their humanity regardless of that, and having it sort of break their heart to have to do what they do. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the 90s version of La Femme Nikita, the TV series that was pretty popular for a while. But one reason it worked so well was that, much like Scarlett Johansson's portrayal of Black Widow, the idea was that regardless of the torment and threat of death that this secret organization put on this woman to turn her into a cold-blooded assassin, she fought to retain that humanity and I don't want to kill people. The whole conflict of the character was, I'm this highly skilled, highly trained assassin, but deep down I'm a good person and I don't want to kill people, and ultimately I want to escape from this nest of killers. Right? And there's a pathos to that. There's an internal struggle to that I think the writers of Black Widow sort of tapped into a similar internal struggle. Do you guys see that, or am I just projecting
Yeah.
La Femme Nikita onto Black Widow?
Absolutely. I think we're going to see more of that when we actually get the Black Widow movie.
Yeah.
But whatever that is. But in her solo runs, that's very evident where it's her. There's obviously the external conflict, but it feels very literary in that there's a strong internal conflict of loyalties and nature versus nurture versus programming and all this stuff that she has to unpack and grow as a result of.
Would you say,
also-
Tim? Would you say Black Widow, is she a killer, or is she a killer only to survive her tortured circumstances? That's the question. At her core, is she a killer? And that you have to ask yourself that same question could be asked about Wolverine.
Yeah.
Are you saying, is she a killer, or is that just her job?
Yeah. I mean, that's also,
I mean, at her. Yeah.
I guess to keep on the same theme I mentioned a little bit earlier, but that's the same thing with Wolverine. He says, "I'm the best I am at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice." But he acknowledges that what he does is not the best thing. He says, "I do it because I need to, but I don't necessarily enjoy it."
Right.
And it's, it's
right. It's more the soldier mentality with Wolvie, which also is an echo of the classic vintage Captain America ideology, right? I mean, he's not really a killer. He's had to do so because of duty, but as a soldier, but at his core, he's a Boy Scout. He's not a killer.
And we saw that really on display when he had that arc where he fought Nuke, where Nuke was very much like, they're very much like the pro-America type characters, but Nuke was more the violent side, and Cap's like, no, this is not the right way to do this.
Right.
He has the beautiful thing about Cap, which some of the writers over at DC might want to take some notes about how to treat Cap, because Superman and Cap are very similar in their ideological challenges to write, because as we know, we live in a more cynical time than when these characters were originally created. And so it's much more difficult as a creator to write a Boy Scout character now and make them relatable and believable. It might help to bring a little bit of Cap into Superman.
No.
Superman's an alien, obviously, but for all practical purposes, human psychology, I should say. What do you guys think about that? I mean, I know we're off the romance thing now, but I just took a turn, so I'm in academic philosophical discussion world again. Sorry, just turned right off that road. Boom.
If Dean and I ever get our own book together, it's just going to be a metaphor for a metaphor.
Exactly. So anyway, thoughts on any of that, or we go back to romance, whatever.
It's part of that. I do have a romance thing, but just we can talk about that. It keeps it's that continual development of being multi-dimensional, and while black and white, good and evil, those are great. But then a lot of times, just like you're saying, Wolverine has to do what he has to do. Black Widow has to do what she has to do. Cap will maybe have to do what he has to do. And is it the lesser of two? Is it the good of many over the few or the one? And so, that makes for interesting struggles.
Yeah.
So that makes for a dynamic and deep character, and yet Cap and Superman need that because they stand for what's right. They're the lawful good, but that doesn't always work. That doesn't always. Sometimes you have to be. You got to make that.
You know who else is sort of that lawful good? That's. I don't know if he's written this way so much now. I haven't been reading him as much, but Peter Parker can probably fall into that as well.
Yep.
Almost as an apprentice of Cap.
Yeah.
In a way, in the comics, in the movies, it's Iron Man is the father figure. But so anyway, back to romance.
Well, I was going to say with characters like Black Widow, I feel like it's another great more good writing
Mm.
is there are probably so many people clamoring for her. Well, for everybody, but her too, because to have a romantic relationship. People say, "Oh, she's got to have a boyfriend or whatever."
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
every character's got to have a love interest. And when that doesn't happen, because of their job, their duty, Star Trek Captain Picard, he's got girlfriends and Beverly Crusher, but in the end, it's Starfleet, and that
Yep.
there's a little bit of there's some sort of anguish, like you want the side of him to find love, but then you also understand it just doesn't happen, and so that I think that's great. There's not always it's not predictable. You know, you can predict that they're going to fall in love, they're going to have no, maybe not. Maybe not.
That's a good observation. Personal preference for me, for example, with Batman, he shouldn't have a love interest.
Nope.
Because he should be married to his beauty.
Yeah, and that is tough. I like that when you as a reader or a consumer of that story, that's a tough thing. I want that would maybe make him happy. That was another thing that would make him happy, and he's not going to get it.
He's not going to get. Well, ultimately, it makes him too vulnerable, and ultimately, it interferes with the mission. You know, it just interferes with the mission.
Yep.
And it works for Batman. I mean, he's a much, some might say, too one-dimensional in a way, but ultimately Batman is on a crusade against crime, and he's almost a monk. He's almost a holy warrior. It's his religion to do this. I mean, he doesn't have time for romance. I mean, it's good to take him down different pathways and develop him, but ultimately that's a doomed thing. That Batman Catwoman, it's doomed. I mean, it's in my opinion.
Yeah.
No,
and I thought that was that some aspect of doomed relationships. I thought that was something that they did really well in Invincible, which I don't know if anyone has read the comic or seen the animated show that came out, but his original love interest does not really work out, even though they've done everything they can. They made everyone fully aware. They've talked about things, but she's like, I just need someone who's there for me all the time and is willing to do things out to help the world, but in a far different way, by doing things, you know, working at a soup kitchen, doing humanitarian aid type stuff. And when Invincible is off, you know, fighting alien invasions and apocalypse level events, and it does not lend itself to being available to help out at soup kitchens or to be there when she needs them. And so it's clearly not, even though they both understand that they're good people, they're like, it doesn't work out that way. That there's too much conflict for it to be a truly healthy relationship.
Right. And that's good storytelling. That adds a layer of depth that we can feel their pain when duty gets in the way and they have to make that decision. And that's always good storytelling too, because if like Batman starts to fall in love, you can say, oh, this isn't going to go well. You have that meta knowledge as a reader, but you're still upset. That's great. That draws people in.
I think people, as you said, sort of the meta pre-knowledge going into something like a Batman Catwoman love affair, marriage, whatever. You know it's temporary when you go in. You know, you're like, okay, well, we know how this is going to end up. You know, but you don't really care as a reader. You're like, okay, how is it going to fall apart tragically this time?
No,
it's like it's a Greek tragedy. You know, you're waiting to happen. It's like,
you know it's happening, but how is it going? Yeah,
how are they going to disintegrate this time?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's good. That's just good storytelling, and it again rounds out the characters. There's not always the payoff. They're not always getting what we expect or what we want for that character.
Yeah,
and that makes for a great story.
I think that's
another. Go ahead.
I think that's also one of the things you have to go into knowing when you're reading from the big two is their plan is writing these characters until publishing ceases to exist as a concept. And so things are going to always. It's a Greek tragedy done as an unending wave. And so things are always going to fall apart. So I never truly expect relationships to work out from reading on the big two, which is kind of it is that weird meta knowledge. And so when they do it right, it's super impactful because, like, wow, you broke you brought me into an actual, like, fictive bubble and had me fully immersed in this. But reading indies, as we are, we have the freedom to write something. No, it's only going to be 3 volumes. Like, all right, 3 volumes, I'm done. That's all I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get something like Sex Criminals, don't demonetize us, YouTube. But
one of the words.
But it's an indie where they know, like, are going to do so many arcs, and the relationship is going to be the core part of the story. It's a heist story told through a romantic lens, and I think that's a very interesting way of going about it. Is we have this develop a relationship that is at times healthy, at times unhealthy, doing the immoral act of using their coitus-induced superpowers to commit robberies.
Wow.
Okay.
It is called Sex Criminals. It's in the name.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's but it's an image comic. They don't really get too graphic with the details on it. Like, we did the thing.
But I mean, it's just
it's
a really good book.
It's a good book. Like, we did the thing. Now do the crime.
Okay.
But it's a good book. But it's a fun exploration of a criminal relationship with powers on the side. It's fun. Yeah.
Interesting.
If as independent creators, when we bring romance in, and probably it's fair to say most of us are going to be creating action adventure, when we're faced with bringing romance in, then we are challenged to, how do we use this phenomenon, this concept with our characters? Because there's no expectation, there's no meta pre-knowledge of, okay, this is how this is going to turn out. So it's a lot more fun, as in most independent endeavors are, because the tropes haven't been established. So you don't, there's you can do anything, and people are along for this roller coaster ride. They have no idea what's going to happen. So we have this unique opportunity to take romance through its own journey. And take the readers with us. So keep an eye on our stuff, listeners, because it's gonna be some surprising material, not the usuals. Even though we're doing action adventure, it's not going to be the usual paint by numbers romances.
Yes.
Right, Scott?
Well, I was thinking about how.
Do you got any weird romances with George Washington going on?
Really crazy with
we're gonna have a one shot.
Franklin did what?
Wasn't Franklin kind of a known womanizer?
He was a little bit of a
yeah.
In the first arc, if you're looking for love, this is the wrong place.
I will say, I also took kind of a similar approach, but I did mind kind of knowing what I wanted to do with it. I didn't necessarily think, like, I didn't put love interest in there. It's like, no, the idea is there's no love interest at this point. Because it'd be very easy for a British spy to fall into the 007 idea of...
of course.
Oh, my lady, I can't help it. But it's, my main character, Willard, is a RAF group captain, so he's already... Punctuality and discipline are already, like, core to his character.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's... in addition to that, he is... he's charismatic, but he's more so insightful. He understands body language, how people act. That's one of the skills that they look for in good commander candidates. As how well can you get to know your squadron in as little time as possible? Right. And so that makes him good at discerning people. And so even though he is built up to be a personable person, that discipline and timeliness, he's like, no, this would be the worst idea right now. I have a spy to catch.
Women.
Right. Well, with my character, Samuel Blake is a retired U.S. cavalry officer, and he's a ladies' man, but he's doing it to cover a very deep-seated grief. So much like Daniel Craig's 007 post Casino Royale, he sort of lost his true love. So the womanizing is distraction.
Yeah.
And so it's there, but it's dysfunctional until he meets the woman in this story, which, brings more real healing to him in a romantic way. So I'm sort of going at it from a broken person trying to heal through romance. So it's going to be in my story as well, but again, primarily as a subtext and not the driving force, although it's definitely part of both main characters. I have a male and female main character that pretty much share screen time equally. So we've got an archaeologist, female adventurer, and a fencing master cavalry officer as the male adventurer. And so I'm trying to give both equal screen time. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a romantic journey, along with all the fighting and sword fighting and fisticuffs and supernatural events as well. So anyway, micro plug or macro if you prefer.
And
buy Silverline.
We might be seeing little bits of Tommy, what are you inking down there?
Yeah.
I've been jumping around from different stuff. This is this is page 1 of Silverblade.
Oh, wow.
That looks awesome. Looks awesome.
This other page was page 13 from the Champion Miss Fury thing, and I have no idea what's going on. I've been jumping. I'm making so many different things at one time. I don't know what stories I'm doing.
The man never sleeps. We know this.
It's good though. It keeps him from knowing the plots, and then he'd reveal them. People
I
would
can't spoil it.
tie him in a chair and tell us the plot. What happens next?
So apparently,
I
this
just think
they're in New Orleans somewhere at a gun show. That's all I know. I don't know why. I guess there's an old lady down here trying to buy some sort of an assault rifle for some reason. I have no idea.
Wow, okay. We just got banned.
Does she pass the background check?
That was it. This
page has got a cute little dog on it. I guess it's a dog. I don't know.
Dean,
and then Dean's page. Tell us about what's going on this page.
Wait, Dean, arms show. Which Bond opens at an arms dealer?
Wow, that would be Tomorrow Never Dies.
Wow.
An international arms dealership. Wow, just going right for the Bond trivia question.
For those of you playing the at-home bingo,
right off. Wow.
we've mentioned Star Trek Bond. I've had him at Random X-Men.
Wow.
And
so anyway.
I saw a quote on Facebook today. I love it, and I'm going to start using it. I'll probably forget, but somebody said, "I'm going to start saying you clearly haven't read the Silmarillion in every that I can." So we need to use that more often. Well,
we do need to use it. You clearly haven't read.
Haven't read the Silmarillion. That's one of the arguments. That is that level of nerdery. Now I'm at that level.
Yes.
But when people try to apply it to the movies and stuff, well, in the Silmarillion, does not count. It's not like they handed the Silmarillion to you before the movie starts. We're going to give you a few minutes to thumb through. Nope, doesn't count in the movie.
Let's hope that the producer, directors, and writers of the upcoming Dune. Let's hope that they have learned how to distill and distribute a very rich tapestry into a very intelligent and loaded screenplay, because you can get lost in the world of Dune.
So I believe it said I believe that they're not going to do the full first actual book. I believe it said they're going to do the first book of the book.
First half.
Yeah.
He's gonna he's gonna. I don't want to do a spoiler, but he's gonna the protagonist is gonna reach a certain level of awareness, and then they're gonna cut it, and then the second half is his level of awareness, and then the battle.
Yes, but I love this. We have really seen nothing about it, but those two trailers we have seen for it have gotten me incredibly excited for it, just in terms of the art direction. And the
fantastic. One of my favorite books as a kid was.
The sense of atmosphere I feel like is right. Yeah.
Epic. Yes.
Yeah.
Epic fantasy. It was the first book, that sort of took epic fantasy and blended it with science fiction and philosophy. I mean, there's philosophy in there too, which is a lot of depth.
From like the first page, you're just getting like a bunch of quotables.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, it's very cool. If you've not read that, Scott or Tom, if you guys have not read Dune, it's on the level of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
it's on the level of Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's very deep. It's very heavy. It's not a light read. You get into like book 4 and you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. There's people who've read the whole, run, and I'm like, I got through 4 books. I'm like, okay, all right, guys, you're freaking me out here. It's a little bit too, I don't know, esoteric. Is the word. But no, the first 3 books primarily are just and what I understand that based on how the first film and its sequel performed, then they'll decide whether to do Dune Messiah and then Children of Dune. But if they at least cover the initial trilogy, that will be fantastic, I think.
Dean, what is who's your protagonist we're seeing here, and what's going
on with this pitch?
Okay. You are seeing one of the knights in the order is just walking along a street at night in London, and he hears the clippity-clop of horses behind him, and he's almost run over by a carriage with a hooded figure. And that character's name is Alan Quatermain, and he's somewhat of a legendary figure in British mythology. In my story, he appears as the mentor character, the Obi-Wan Kenobi character, if you will, to the main protagonist. But I wanted to introduce the world through his experiences. So we're going to have a scene that opens the story and very quickly explain his role and why he's being attacked by this evil secret society and what they're doing. And I'm going to establish that very, very quickly within the first 3 pages. You'll know that he's a member of the good guy order, a member of the bad guys order just attacked him, and something very horrible is thrown out of that carriage, which it's very tragic, and we'll see that on page 2, which is in progress at this time. So that's what you got going on with that opening, man. I go right for the jugular, in. No slow builds for me, man.
Everybody out there, if you are enthralled by Dean's pencils and Tommy's inks here, just wait. Kickstarter, you'll be able to get your hands on an original. One lucky backer will be able to grab an original of our variant cover. And if you haven't seen that, it is on the Steam Patriots Facebook page. I don't know if it made it over to the Silverline page, but Dean did an awesome variant with a total action hero comic cover, and it rocks, and I love it. And
thank you, because I had to do. If you pictured it in motion, Scott, and which I'm sure you have, it's the traditional slow hero walk away from the explosion in the background.
And looking at it, I don't want to give away what you're looking at because I want you to read the story to see what's going on with that carriage behind him. So everybody out there, go check out Steam Patriots on Facebook and scroll down a little bit. There's a Dean and Tommy variant cover. And we're getting close to the end here. So I want to give the opportunity for parting thoughts before I give our closing spiel and thank our sponsors and tell everybody what's on the horizon. We've been talking about what we look for in romantic, the love interests for our main characters. That was the theme, but we kind of went all over with relationships. We, as guys, I guess so far prefer that it's not the main plot, but that it fits. And when it takes over the storyline, we kind of get a little, but that's okay if that's your thing. But consumers of our genre and what we like to write and what we like to read is explosions and punches and action. Not all the time, but just like Dean said, if you went into a romantic movie and it was all explosions and punches and car chase scenes, you might get a little tired of that. Whereas we want, if there's going to be a love interest, it has to make sense. It has to further the plot. It has to fit with our hero. And however, if that fits well, if that love interest is a good fit or a bad fit, it has to be part of the story. And it can work really, really well. And I think we also determined that it's very difficult to have a hero that doesn't care about somebody.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult to have that. And they may not end up with that somebody. There's not always a love interest, but there's somebody they care about. And this dovetailed a lot with our Sidekick talk of last week. Oh, I'm sorry. Saying love and action. I know I only watched it once, so maybe it didn't stand the test of time, but that Brad Pitt, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed, and I always, my line being a dad is they're in that car chase scene. They're driving the minivan and somehow like outrunning the Mercedes Benzes. But they're in the minivan. What's that?
It's turbo.
Yeah, it's a turbo Chrysler Town and Country, and they're on the highway, and like he throws open one door, and they're shooting at him or whatever, and she slams it, and he throws open the other door, and he grabs the guy and throws him through the van, and he stops and he says, "These doors are really useful." It's just like minivan. That's my dad moment, but that's just the point of that movie is action and romance, and that's the whole point. You go into it knowing that, so that's done well.
And something we didn't really touch about at all, but I think is interesting when done. But you can see it in Black Bolt and the Inhumans, as well as in Dune, and some other things. But in Game of Thrones, strongly. But marriage or relationships of convenience or out of like duty.
Oh yes.
So, where you kind of bypass the romance. Like, all right,
mm-hmm.
you have to marry. It makes the most sense.
Oh yeah, that's another level of strife. That makes for great storytelling. If your character is forced into a situation it's not what they want, that's drama. That's sometimes anguish. And then if you can turn it around, sometimes I don't know. Is it expected that gets turned around and they fall in love? Maybe, but sometimes that's a great story that they work together, they hate each other, and over the course of time, they love each other, or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
That in the Pixar world, Pixar makes amazing movies for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crazy about Brave, only because I felt like it was a trope that's been done many, many times. And the movie was great, but when Pixar sets the bar up here, I feel like when they make a movie that's a little cliched, because the daughter with her oaf of a father being forced to marry oafish courtiers or idiots are courting her.
Yeah.
She struggles with her. No, her mom. The mom character was interesting with being turned into a bear and all that. But
the inclusion of bear was cool.
Yeah, that was clever. That was clever. But it just I felt like it was like they were like, oh crap, we got to get a plot written.
It felt like it copied too much of Jane Austen without creating too much of its own personality.
and copied a lot of fantasy. The female situation. She's being forced and she's angry with her parents, and I don't know. But in the end, she did not end up getting married or anything like that. So they didn't follow the formula that she's going to end up with a husband in the end. So, it's not what the audience expected necessarily. So that I'll give it a point for that. But I don't know, that's one that that one in there, that dinosaur one Pixar did. Ugh. What was it called? The nice dinosaur. You guys don't even know it exists?
I haven't seen any dinosaur movie after The Land Before Time.
No, is there a dinosaur movie where the plot isn't we have to get there in time or before?
The last dinosaur movie I saw was Kong versus Godzilla. So
there you go. Yeah.
There you
It's a
go.
good dinosaur movie. I'm gonna have to look up the kind, the gentle, the good dinosaur. I don't know. I'm sorry, Pixar. I generally like their movies, but
The Good Dinosaur is like The Good Doctor, but with a brontosaurus.
yes, different than The Good Son. Very different from that movie. Macaulay Culkin and who was in that with him? Was that Elijah Wood?
Wow, you're
That's
really pulling that one.
That's a '90s.
No.
One of them,
Yes.
I think, is Macaulay Culkin. They all think he's a great little boy, and he's
he's mad. Yeah.
But does he?
yeah. And I think does he do that in every movie?
Right. There's always that.
And Elijah Wood in what was that? Radio Flyer. That movie was one I watched with the
well done.
The wagon.
Mm-hmm.
The kidnap. Okay, all right, we're devolving here. Folks, hey, we've been talking about romance, which we're all experts at discussing, and how that plays into storytelling and what we like to see as a romantic love interest for our main characters, our lead characters, and the good, the bad, what comes out of it, how it's done well, and how that has evolved over time. If you got comments, if you got ideas, you got questions, throw them in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure you have liked, followed, subscribed, and shared these shows. And if you haven't gotten enough of this discussion, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, Silver Sunday, they will be continuing it with a whole host of new ideas and new individuals, and maybe... I don't know if Tim's going to hop over
Tim's
there.
going to sneak over
there. Tim will talk X-Men and keep them on track over there. Yes. Hey, we also have podcasts.
We never talked about Bishop. Who is Bishop in love with? Okay. That's one of your favorites.
Well, Cable's my favorite, but Cable and Bishop. Cable has the father-daughter relationship with Hope. But kind of the character who should not be in love, Cable and Bishop are both those characters who are too in love with the mission to really have another point of love at this point that is truly romantic. Both also have to deal with the fact that their families, they're widows. In the future timeline, their families were killed by Apocalypse, so they came back to stop that. And for Cable, he said, "I'll take Hope as my daughter," but which is kind of weird because she's Scott's daughter, but so that makes her Cable's sister.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, but yeah, it's a big brother relationship. But
he's his own grandpa.
Yes, exactly. But they're both like, all right, we're here to save the future. After that, we're not making time to go on any dates. It's the love is the mission, not another person necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Tommy, just okay. I'm wrapping up, and you throw that one out there. Okay.
I know. I saw your face. I did that on purpose. Yeah.
All right. Hey, we are brought to you by the Daytona Beach Comic Convention. That's happening September 18th and 19th. If you want to go say hello to Silverliners, be there. And then also much closer, just weeks away, May 21st through the 23rd is Pensacon. I know that Tommy Flormonti will be there, maybe others. But
my business partner Barry and his wife Jennifer Gregory, they'll be there also.
Go say hello. Get his.
A bunch of the Mississippi folks and all of our all those guys that grew up breaking in the comics with. They'll all be there.
Yes. So May 21st through the 23rd, Pensacon, and head over to historycamp.org. and sign up for their email so you can get notified of all their news. And July 10th is History Camp, an online history conference where you can just go head over heels with all things history. And we thank them for sponsoring our shows. Why don't we say goodnight? I'll start at Steam Patriots on Facebook and Instagram, steampatriots.us. Go over there. We got a countdown to our Kickstarter next week, Thursday, May 13th. Steam Patriots and the award-winning title Divinity will be launching, Divinity number 2, launching on Kickstarter next week. We will be talking about that a lot next Wednesday.
I am so excited for you.
I'm super excited. I can't wait. We'll have lots of goodies and extras, and we'll be announcing when we're going to be on other shows and other podcasts. Hopefully there will be lots of those announcements coming out. So make sure you are following and liking. Go over to silverlinecomics.com and read our blog and buy all our playsets and toys. Tommy, go ahead.
You can follow me on Facebook. Just look for Thomas Flormonte Jr. And you can go to infernostudios.com just to get links to all the other stuff, or to get any of my Kid Hero books, all that kind of good stuff. I'm just here and there and everywhere. So
you are
Flormonte, Florimonte.
Doing it all. Tommy Flormonte, Tommy Kablam, Dean.
Tommy Kablam.
Dean Zachary. You can find me at all the usual socials, particularly Dean's Zachary on Facebook. If you want to see art galleries from way back, comic art fans. If you want to see my list of published work, Comic Vine. And of course, you can always find me at Silverline. And see you next time.
All right. And Tim?
Tim, TK Writer on all the socials. TikTok, Tim doesn't TikTok, although I'm more so active on Instagram recently. I am also on Twitch at AgriBacon, where I am live Wednesdays before this show, and Saturday and Sunday. And recently you can find Rory Boyle, co-creator of Steam Patriots, in my chat more frequently than you can find him on Wednesday WHAM.
Rory, I'm calling out. Rory. You better be somewhere important next week.
He's still in Hawaii. He's still on the beach.
He's doing this guy.
He's still on the beach.
MIA. She's got a book getting published. All right.
Hey, get him to start getting out there talking about it.
Yeah, we'll get him in front of people. Gentlemen, thank you. And to everyone out there, thank you for joining us. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. We appreciate you. And don't forget about Silver Sunday at 9 p.m. Don't forget about our podcast. We will see you next week. And as always, make mine a silver